The family saved for 3 years. Every month, a small amount set aside in an envelope labeled Disney Fund. The children watched the balance grow, counting down to the day they would finally walk through those famous gates. They had seen the commercials. They had watched the movies. They knew exactly what awaited them. Magic, wonder, the happiest place on earth. They arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, hoping the crowds would be manageable. They had purchased tickets months in advance, stunned by the price, but willing to pay for what they believed would be an unforgettable experience. They had budgeted carefully, knowing that expenses inside the park would add up. What they found was something different from what they had imagined. The lines stretched for hours. Rides they had dreamed about required additional payments to access in reasonable time. The food was expensive beyond expectation and disappointing in quality. The crowds were so dense that moving through the park felt like navigating a subway at rush hour. By mid-afternoon, the children were exhausted and frustrated. By evening, the parents were quietly calculating how much they had spent for an experience that felt nothing like the magic they had been promised. This family is not unique. Across social media, in consumer surveys, in the conversations that happen in hotel lobbies after long days in the park, the same sentiment echoes. Disneyland is not what it used to be. Something has changed. Something has been lost. The happiest place on earth has become something else entirely. This is the story of what happened to Disneyland, how the place that invented the modern theme park experience has slowly transformed into something its creator would not recognize, and why millions of visitors leave each year feeling not magical, but disappointed. The economics of Disneyland have transformed dramatically over the past 2 decades. What was once an accessible family entertainment has become a luxury experience priced beyond the reach of the middle-class families who built its legacy. In 1990, a single-day ticket to Disneyland costs approximately $25. Adjusted for inflation, that would be roughly $60 today. Instead, a single-day ticket now costs well over $150. During peak periods, with prices exceeding $200 on the busiest days, the increase has outpaced inflation by a factor of 3. A family of 4 purchasing single-day tickets during a popular period will spend over $600 before entering the park, before riding a single ride, before eating a single meal, before purchasing a single souvenir. $600 just to walk through the gates. The justification offered by Disney is demand management. Higher prices reduce crowding. The logic goes, creating a better experience for those willing to pay. But the crowds have not diminished noticeably. The parks remain packed. The only thing that has changed is who can afford to be there and how much financial strain the visit creates. The ticket price is merely the beginning. The costs inside the park have escalated proportionally. A simple hamburger costs over $15. A bottle of water approaches $6. A family seeking lunch will easily spend over $100 for food that would cost a quarter of that price outside the gates. The merchandise has followed the same trajectory. The souvenir that once cost $10 now costs $30. The mouse ears that children beg for approach $40. The parents who want to make memories find that each memory carries a price tag that accumulates relentlessly throughout the day. Walt Disney famously hated waiting. He designed Disneyland with the understanding that standing in line was not entertainment. The original park featured attractions that absorbed guests quickly, keeping wait times manageable, maintaining the sense of momentum that made the experience feel magical. He believed that every moment a guest spent in his park should feel worthwhile, even the moments between attractions. That philosophy has been abandoned. Wait times at popular attractions now routinely exceed 2 hours. During peak periods, some rides require 3 hours or more of standing in queue. A family visiting for a single day might experience 4 or 5 attractions total, spending most of their time not enjoying rides but waiting for them. The anticipation that should build excitement instead breeds frustration and exhaustion. The mathematics are brutal. A 12-hour park day sounds substantial until you subtract the waiting. 5 attractions at 2 hours each consumes 10 hours. Add time for meals, for walking between areas, for bathroom breaks, and the actual ride time might total 30 minutes. 30 minutes of magic, 10 hours of standing in line. The ratio would have horrified Walt Disney, who understood that the experience was the product, not just the ride itself. The physical experience of waiting has deteriorated along with the wait times. The queues that were once designed with entertainment in mind featuring interactive elements and storytelling that made the wait feel purposeful, have not kept pace with the extended durations. A queue designed to entertain guests for 30 minutes cannot sustain guests for 3 hours. The theming runs out, the entertainment exhausts itself. What remains is simply standing, shuffling forward inches at a time, watching the minutes accumulate. Disney's solution to this problem has not been to add capacity or reduce wait times. Instead, they have monetized the waiting itself. The Genie Plus system, introduced in 2021, allows guests to pay additional fees to reduce their wait times for certain attractions. The Lightning Lane option charges even more for the most popular rides. The company looked at a problem it had created and saw not something to fix but something to sell. A family that has already spent $600 on admission might spend another $150 on Genie Plus and Lightning Lane access. The total for simply entering the park and accessing attractions at reasonable wait times now approaches $800 for a single day, for an experience that previous generations enjoyed for a fraction of that cost without additional fees. The system creates a two-tiered experience. Those who pay extra move through shorter lines, enjoying more attractions with less waiting. Those who do not pay watch the premium guests pass by, their own wait extending as the line capacity is shared with those who have purchased priority. The visible inequality creates resentment that permeates the park atmosphere. The frustration this creates is palpable in the parks. Families who could not afford the premium access feel cheated, watching others who paid more receive better treatment. Children ask their parents why those people get to skip the line. The explanations are awkward, revealing the transactional nature of an experience that was supposed to feel magical. The egalitarian experience that Disney once offered, where every guest received the same magic regardless of wealth, has been replaced by a stratified system where money buys not just admission but a fundamentally different experience. The family who saved 4 years and the family who booked casually now occupy the same park, but experience entirely different realities. The psychological impact extends beyond the immediate frustration. Guests who feel nickel-and-dimed throughout their visit carry that feeling into their memories. The vacation that was supposed to create positive associations instead creates complicated ones. The recommendation to friends becomes qualified. The desire to return diminishes. The lifetime value of each guest decreases even as the immediate extraction increases. Former cast members have described the Genie Plus system as a betrayal of Disney's founding principles. They recall when their training emphasized that every guest deserved the same experience, that the magic was not for sale in pieces. The current system represents a fundamental philosophical shift, one that prioritizes revenue over the values that built the brand. The technology that enables this stratification also enables surveillance that shapes the experience in subtle ways. The app tracks guest movement through the park, gathering data that informs pricing decisions, capacity management, and marketing. The guests have become data points as much as visitors, their behavior analyzed for opportunities to extract additional revenue. The employees who create the Disneyland experience, called cast members in Disney terminology, once represented a workforce that was adequately compensated and genuinely enthusiastic. The job carried prestige. Working at Disneyland meant being part of something special, and the company's treatment of employees reflected that understanding. The cast members were the frontline ambassadors of the Disney brand, and they were valued accordingly. That relationship has deteriorated significantly over the past 2 decades. Cast members now report wages that make living in Southern California nearly impossible. The Anaheim area surrounding Disneyland has experienced dramatic increases in housing costs, while wages have not kept pace. Many workers cannot afford apartments within reasonable distance of the park. Many cast members work multiple jobs to survive. They finish their shifts creating magic and immediately begin shifts at second jobs, often in food service or retail. The exhaustion that comes from working 60 or 70 hours weekly affects their ability to perform at either job. The smile that Disney requires becomes harder to maintain when the person behind it has not had adequate rest. Some cast members have reported living in their cars, despite working full-time at one of the most profitable entertainment companies in the world. They park in lots near the park, sleeping in vehicles that become unbearably hot in summer and uncomfortably cold in winter. They use gym memberships for showers. They maintain the appearance of stability while experiencing homelessness. The contrast between the fantasy inside the gates and the reality of those creating it has become increasingly stark. The smiling faces that greet guests may be attached to individuals who are exhausted, financially stressed, and struggling to maintain the performance that Disney requires. The magic they create does not extend to their own lives. The cognitive dissonance required to perform under these conditions takes a psychological toll. Cast members must project joy they do not feel, enthusiasm they cannot sustain, a positive outlook that contradicts their daily reality. The performance requirements that define Disney employment become burdensome when the performer's offstage life is falling apart. Working conditions have intensified as the company has sought to maximize efficiency. Staffing levels have been reduced relative to attendance. The cast members who remain must serve more guests with fewer resources. The ratio of workers to visitors has shifted unfavorably, meaning each employee faces more demands with less support. The personal touches that once defined Disney service have become harder to provide when each employee is stretched to serve more visitors. The moments when cast members would notice a child's birthday and arrange a special interaction, when they would go out of their way to solve a guest's problem, when they would provide the unexpected gestures that created lasting memories. These moments require time and energy that overworked staff cannot spare. The training that once prepared cast members extensively has been streamlined to reduce costs. The deep knowledge of Disney history and attention to detail that characterized the workforce has diminished as training periods have shortened and turnover has increased. New cast members learn the basics of their roles, but not the philosophy that once made Disney service distinctive. The institutional memory that maintained consistency across the guest experience has eroded. The veteran cast members who remembered how things were supposed to be done have retired or departed. Their replacements, trained less thoroughly and supported less adequately, cannot maintain standards they were never taught to understand. The magic that came from employees who genuinely cared about the experience has been harder to maintain when employees feel undervalued by the company they serve. The emotional labor required to project warmth and enthusiasm is sustainable only when workers feel that their effort is recognized and compensated fairly. When they feel exploited, the performance becomes hollow. Labor organizing has increased at the parks. Cast members have pushed for better wages, better conditions, and better treatment. The company that presents itself as magical to guests has faced accusations of being considerably less magical to those who create the experience. The contrast between brand image and employment reality has become a source of public relations challenges. The organizing efforts have achieved some gains, but the fundamental tension remains. Disney's profit model depends on controlling labor costs. Cast member well-being depends on increasing those same costs. The competing interests create ongoing conflict that affects the park experience in ways that guests may sense without understanding. The turnover rate among cast members has increased as working conditions have deteriorated. The experienced staff who provided consistency and institutional knowledge have been replaced by newer workers who do not stay long enough to develop expertise. The park loses continuity while incurring constant training costs for workers who quickly depart. Walt Disney created Disneyland with a specific vision. He wanted a place where families could experience wonder together, where the stresses of daily life would disappear, where imagination would feel real. The park was designed as an escape, a complete environment that transported guests to somewhere better. He spoke of Disneyland as a gift to families, a place where parents and children could share experiences that would bind them together. The current Disneyland serves different purposes. It is primarily an extraction mechanism, designed to maximize revenue from each guest through admission, food, merchandise, and premium services. The experience has been optimized, not for wonder, but for spending. Every element of the guest journey has been analyzed for opportunities to generate additional revenue. The transformation did not happen overnight. It occurred gradually, decision by decision, each one justifiable in isolation, but cumulatively representing a fundamental shift in philosophy. A small price increase here, a new fee there, a quality reduction that most guests would not notice, each change small enough to accept, together representing something unrecognizable. The mobile app that guides visitors through the park exemplifies this shift. It shows wait times and allows purchases and directs guests toward efficiency. What it does not do is encourage the wandering, the discovering, the serendipitous experiences that Walt Disney valued, the spontaneous encounter with a character, the unexpected discovery of a hidden detail, the magical moment that could not be planned. These experiences become harder when guests are staring at screens. The app turns the park into a series of transactions to be optimized rather than a world to be explored. Guests move from scheduled reservation to scheduled reservation, their movements dictated by the algorithm that maximizes their spending while minimizing their waiting. The freedom that once defined the Disneyland experience has been replaced by a managed movement. The data that the app collects enables further optimization, not of guest experience, but of revenue extraction. The company knows where guests go, what they buy, how long they stay, and what makes them spend more. This information shapes pricing decisions, placement decisions, and design decisions. The guests have become subjects of study, their behavior analyzed for commercial advantage. The intellectual properties that now dominate the park reflect corporate priorities rather than creative ones. The classic attractions that define Disneyland have been replaced or modified to incorporate characters from recently acquired franchises. The coherent vision that Walt Disney maintained has given way to a patchwork of brands, each representing a revenue stream rather than an artistic choice. The acquisitions of Marvel, Lucasfilm, and other properties brought valuable intellectual property to Disney. The company has deployed these properties aggressively across the parks, replacing attractions that were considered outdated with experiences based on currently popular franchises. The strategy maximizes the value of the acquisitions while changing the character of the parks. The result is a park where corporate synergy is more visible than creative vision. The attractions serve to reinforce entertainment properties that guests can experience at home through streaming services. The unique experience that only the park could provide has been diluted by connections to experiences available everywhere. The seasonal events that once added variety have become additional revenue opportunities. Halloween and Christmas decorations, once included with admission, now carry their own premium pricing. The special experiences that made certain times of year magical now make certain times of year more expensive. The holiday that was supposed to be special becomes another occasion for extraction. The special merchandise available only during seasonal events creates artificial urgency. Guests feel pressured to purchase items that will not be available later, making buying decisions based on scarcity rather than desire. The limited availability that creates excitement also creates anxiety, the fear of missing out replacing the joy of discovery. The transformation has been gradual enough that many guests have not consciously registered it, but the feeling has changed. The park that once felt generous now feels extractive. The magic that once seemed freely given now seems carefully rationed and priced. The welcome that guests receive is contingent on continued spending. The cumulative effect is a relationship between Disney and its guests that has become transactional rather than emotional. The loyalty that once stemmed from genuine affection now must be purchased through premium memberships and special experiences. The love that families felt for Disney has been monetized until the love itself begins to waver. Disneyland once stood alone in its category. No other theme park offered comparable quality, comparable attention to detail, comparable commitment to guest experience. The premium pricing that Disney commanded was justified by a premium product that no competitor could match. Families who chose Disney knew they were paying more, but believed they were receiving more. That differentiation has eroded substantially over the past decade. Universal Studios has invested heavily in attractions that rival or exceed Disney's offerings. The wizarding world of Harry Potter provides immersion that matches anything Disney has created. The competitive investment has extended beyond single attractions to overall park experience. Universal has improved its food offerings, its customer service, its app functionality. Simultaneously, Disney has reduced quality in ways that narrow the gap from the other direction. The maintenance deferrals, the staffing reductions, the quality cuts have brought Disney's product closer to what competitors offer. The premium that once seemed justified now seems merely habitual, based on reputation rather than current reality. The gap that once justified Disney's premium has narrowed from both directions. Disney has reduced quality while competitors have increased it. The family choosing where to spend their vacation dollar now faces a genuine comparison rather than an obvious choice. The automatic selection of Disney has become a considered decision with credible alternatives. The international Disney parks have made the comparison even more stark. Tokyo Disneyland, operated by a different company under license, maintains standards that exceed the American parks. The attention to detail, the commitment to maintenance, the quality of food and service all surpass what guests experience in Anaheim. The same brand delivers demonstrably different quality depending on location. Guests who have experienced Tokyo return to Anaheim disappointed, aware of what Disneyland could be if the commitment to quality remained. They see the deferred maintenance, their reduced staffing, the economized experiences, and know that Disney is capable of better. The comparison reveals the California parks, not as the best Disney can do, but as what Disney chooses to do when maximizing profit. The Shanghai and Hong Kong parks offer similar comparisons. The newer international parks were built to higher standards, their attractions representing advances over what the American parks offer. The guests who travel internationally see Disney at its best and return home to Disney at its most economical. The competition extends beyond other theme parks. Family entertainment dollars can go to many destinations. The national parks offer experiences that cost a fraction of Disney. A week at Yellowstone or Yosemite creates memories that rival any theme park, at a fraction of the cost and with a fraction of the stress. Beach vacations provide relaxation that theme parks cannot. The family that spends what they would have spent at Disney on a week at the ocean may find themselves happier, less exhausted, more bonded. The assumption that Disney represents the pinnacle of family vacation has been challenged by alternatives that offer different values. The assumption that a Disney trip represents the pinnacle of family vacation has been challenged by alternatives that offer better value and different experiences. The Disney monopoly on family vacation imagination has weakened as families discover that magic can be found in many places, often for less money and with less hassle. The brand loyalty that Disney cultivated over generations has begun to weaken perceptibly. Families who visited annually have reduced their frequency to every few years or less. The tradition of regular Disney trips has been broken for many families who discover that skipping a year was not only financially easier but emotionally acceptable. The Disney adults who once planned every vacation around the parks have started exploring alternatives. The obsessive fandom that built communities around park visits has fragmented. Some former devotees have become critics, their expertise now directed toward documenting decline rather than celebrating magic. The annual pass holders who provided consistent revenue and park atmosphere have been treated with decreasing appreciation. The program that once rewarded loyalty has been restructured repeatedly, reducing benefits while increasing restrictions. The most devoted fans have felt most betrayed by a company that seemed to view their devotion as something to exploit rather than honor. The sun sets over Sleeping Beauty Castle, painting the sky in colors that have marked the end of millions of Disneyland days. The lights begin to flicker on along Main Street, creating the twilight glow that has enchanted visitors for nearly 70 years. The familiar music plays as it has played across generations, the melodies that have become intertwined with childhood memories for millions of people. The physical park remains, beautiful and iconic, a monument to a vision that changed entertainment forever. But something essential has shifted beneath the familiar surface. The families making their way toward the exit carry expressions more exhausted than enchanted. The parents calculate what they spent against what they received, the mental accounting that should not accompany a magical experience. The children, overstimulated and overtired, may not remember the magic. They may remember the waiting, the crowds, the moments when the reality fell short of the dream. The conversations in the parking tram reveal the truth that the exit surveys may not capture. The honest assessments shared among family members when the performance is over. The admissions that the day did not meet expectations. The calculations of whether they would do this again, and the hesitations that accompany those calculations. Disneyland stands at a crossroads, though the company may not acknowledge it publicly. The current model maximizes short-term revenue while potentially destroying long-term loyalty. Each disappointed family represents not just a single lost visit, but potentially a generational break in the chain of Disney devotion that has sustained the parks for decades. The families who once brought their children, who then brought their own children, who intended to someday bring grandchildren. This chain of tradition breaks when one generation decides the experience is no longer worth the costs and hassle. The break, once it occurs, may not be repaired. The grandchildren who never experienced Disney will not develop the nostalgia that motivates future visits. The most devoted Disney fans have become the most vocal critics. They remember what the parks once were. They see what the parks have become. They grieve for something they loved that has changed into something they struggle to recognize. Their criticism comes not from hostility but from affection betrayed. They wanted Disney to succeed and feel that Disney has betrayed its own legacy. The online communities that once celebrated Disney have become forums for documentation of decline. The enthusiasts who once shared tips for maximizing magic now share evidence of deterioration. The photographs that once captured wonder now capture peeling paint, broken animatronics, and overcrowded queues. The fandom has become an archive of what has been lost. The question is, whether Disney will change course, whether the revenue maximization that has defined recent years will give way to a renewed commitment to the experience that built the brand, whether the accountants who have driven decisions will yield to the creators who understand what made Disney special, whether the magic that Walt Disney created can be restored, or whether it has been permanently sacrificed for quarterly earnings. The financial pressures that drive current decisions are real. The company has obligations to shareholders who expect returns. The investments required to restore quality would reduce near-term profits. The executives who might champion quality face metrics that reward extraction. The system is designed to produce exactly the outcomes that are destroying the guest experience. But the long-term mathematics tell a different story. A brand is an asset that can be depleted. The goodwill that Disney accumulated over decades can be exhausted by years of disappointment. The pricing power that premium brands command depends on delivering premium experiences. When the experience deteriorates, the pricing power eventually follows. The families will keep coming, at least for now. The brand remains powerful enough to attract visitors, despite the complaints. The desire to experience the Disney magic remains strong, even as the magic itself has diminished. But each disappointed visit erodes the foundation. Each family that decides not to return represents a crack in the kingdom's walls. The children who visit today and have negative experiences will not develop the nostalgia that motivates adult spending. They will not become the Disney adults who plan vacations around the parks, who purchase annual passes, who buy merchandise. They will associate Disney with stress and disappointment rather than magic and wonder. The customer pipeline that feeds Disney's future is being contaminated at the source. Disneyland was built on a promise that for the price of admission, guests would receive something they could not find anywhere else. That promise has been broken, repeatedly, systematically, in service of profits that Walt Disney would not have recognized as worth the cost. The man who mortgaged his house to fund his vision would not mortgage his vision to fund shareholder returns. The happiest place on earth has become something else. Something more expensive than it has ever been. Something more crowded than it was ever designed to be. Something more frustrating than it should ever feel. Something less magical than it needs to be to justify what it demands. The castle still stands against the California sky, its spires reaching upward as they have for nearly 7 decades. The music still plays through hidden speakers, the melodies that evoke emotions, even in those who have never visited. The fireworks still light the sky each evening, the spectacle that marks the end of each Disney day. But the feeling has changed, and feelings, in the end, are what Disneyland was always selling. Not rides, not merchandise, not food, but the feeling of being somewhere magical, somewhere special, somewhere that made the ordinary world disappear. That feeling has become harder to find amid the crowds and costs and compromises. The question that remains is simple but profound. Can Disney find its way back to magic, or has the magic been sold off, piece by piece, decision by decision, until nothing remains but a very expensive memory of what once was? The families who saved for 3 years deserve an answer. The children who dreamed of this day deserve an answer. The cast members who want to create magic but are not given the resources to do so deserve an answer. The legacy that Walt Disney created deserves an answer. The answer will come not in statements or press releases, but in decisions. In budgets that prioritize experience or extraction. In staffing levels that enable service or merely survival. In maintenance schedules that preserve quality or merely prevent collapse. In pricing strategies that reflect value or merely test limits. The answer will come in whether the next family that saves for 3 years and walks through those gates finds what they were promised. They are still waiting. The whole world is watching, and the clock is ticking on a kingdom that once seemed timeless.